So while everybody is talking about migrants or illegal immigrants, or they're talking about the Truckers for Trump going on in New York City, or they're talking about any other little thing lately, what they're not talking about, unfortunately, is what is going on with the banks. So I like to look at different things that may not be in your face kind of stories, because sometimes those are bigger than the in your face stories, like the southern border and the truckers and Trump and everything else that's going on right now, right? So I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but think about credit cards and things. You've got Visa, you have American Express, you have MasterCard, and you have Discover. You have four that basically control absolutely everything, whether you want a credit card through your bank, whether you want one from the lender themselves, American Express, Visa, MasterCard, or Discover, or whether you want one from a store. Like, let's say you go to Walmart, right? They have Walmart credit cards, but they also have Walmart cards that are backed by, I think Walmart is backed by Visa. If you go to your bank, let's say you go to Bank of America. If you want a Bank of America credit card, it's going to be backed by Visa or MasterCard, depending. Same thing with Wells Fargo, same thing with PNC, same thing with Citibank. Wherever you go, they're going to be, those credit cards are going to be backed by either Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover. There's always been four of them, right? Well, now there's three, because Capital One, which is technically MasterCard, is buying Discover. And let me explain why that's kind of a big deal. Because Discover is the one, if you've seen the commercials on TV, Discover is the one that touts themselves as the ones who have the US-based customer service. Well, sorry, my dog is over here licking the carpet. I don't know why. When you have customer-based service in the United States, it makes you and I feel more comfortable having that credit card. There will be people out there who will say, hey, listen, I need a credit card. I need something for either emergencies or for regular everyday living now, because interest rates are so flipping through the roof, and mortgage payments and electric payments and everything else is taking up the chunk of checking accounts. Some people are having to resort to their credit cards to make regular purchases outside of those things, right? So you think to yourself, well, which one's going to get me the lowest APR, the lowest interest rate? Which one's going to get me the highest limit? Which one's going to get me the best customer service? Because at the end of the day, customer service is extremely important. And there's a lot of people who want that Discover card, because based off their commercials, I know you guys have seen them, their customer service is based in the USA. At least it was, until Capital One came through. Because Capital One, in case you were curious, for those of you who don't know who Capital One is, Capital One Financial Corporation, they are an American bank holding company specializing in credit cards, auto loans, banking, and savings accounts. They are headquartered here in Virginia, McLean, Virginia to be exact, with operations primarily in the United States. Like, most of Capital One is going to be in the United States, not out in other countries, whereas Visa, MasterCard, things like that, they can be outside of the United States, right? But the problem here is Capital One, which is a MasterCard, Capital One Financial Corp, they were ranked ninth largest bank in the U.S. by assets, meaning they have a lot of stuff. They provide various specialized services such as credit cards, banking, and auto loans. The firm has set up their outsourced customer service with a Filipino BPO company, meaning for those of you who have Discover and are now being bought out by Capital One, you will no longer, when you need to make that phone call to get some sort of customer service, you're not going to be reaching the customer service representative here in the good old US of A. You're going to be getting somebody that has been outsourced through the Filipino BPO company. So who knows what country those are going to go out to, because I'm sure they have various reaches there. Capital One, it was the 12th largest bank as of the third quarter, with $471.4 billion in total assets, $billion in total assets, and $346 billion in deposits. This is according to the S&P Global. Now, for people who are like, I don't see why it's a big deal that, they're being bought out, it's just, another credit card, whatever. Well, you've taken it from your opportunity to have four places to go to in order to get some sort of loan help down to three. You have knocked out a complete area of loaning, which in my opinion is a massive deal. That says to me that there is going to be probably more drawback of loans, whether it's going to be an automotive loan, a home loan, whether it's credit cards in general, whether it's new bank accounts, even, because Capital One does all of that, right? But the fact that they are buying out Discover is huge. What's next? Does American Express buy out Visa? Does American Express then turn around and buy out Capital One? How long until we are down to one credit company where you can go for everything and anything, which then if they are the only one, they have the power to do whatever they want. So the fact that we're now going from 4 different credit companies down to 3 means that those 3 that are left can say, oh, listen, we don't have this 4th one. The 3 of us can raise our interest rates. We can lower our credit limits. We can make it harder, more hoops for people to jump through in order to get an auto loan, a home loan, a bank loan, or whatever else. So to me, it's a huge deal. So Capital One, they bought Discover for $35 billion. That is a capital B, my dudes, in a deal that combines major U.S. credit card companies. Capital One Financial is buying Discover Financial Services for $35 billion. In a deal that would bring together 2 of the nation's biggest lenders and credit card issuers. This is according to, this one's on ABC News, but Capital One Financial said it's buying Discover Financial Services for $35 billion in a deal that would bring together 2 of the nation's credit card companies, as well as potentially shake up the payments industry, which is largely dominated by Visa and MasterCard. Under the terms of the all-stock transaction, Discover Financial shareholders will receive Capital One shares valued at nearly $140. That's a significant premium to the $110.49 that Discover shares closed at on Friday. So you're getting a bigger share, more money technically. The deal marries 2 of the largest credit card companies that aren't banks first, like JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup, with the notable exception of American Express. It also brings together 2 companies whose customers are largely similar, often Americans who are looking for cash back or modest travel rewards compared to the premium credit cards dominated by Amex, Citi, and Chase. This marketplace that's dominated by the big players is going to shrink a little bit more now. This is according to Matt Schultz, who is the chief credit card analyst at LendingTree. It will also give Discover's payment network a major credit card partner in a way that could make the payment network a major competitor once again. The U.S. credit card industry is dominated by the Visa MasterCard duopoly, with Amex being a distant 3rd and Discover an even more distant 4th place. It's unclear whether Capital One will adopt the Discover payment system, or it may set up a payment network that allows parallel use of Discover and a second payment network like Visa. The thing here is, Capital One has long had a business model looking for customers who will keep a balance on their cards, aiming for customers with lower credit scores than American Express or even Discover. So Capital One, when I had really, really crappy credit, I could not get anything through Visa themselves. I could not get anything through MasterCard. I could not get anything through Discover. Hell, there was no way I was getting anything through American Express. They have like the biggest hoops you have to jump through in order to get like the good, if you will. But Capital One, they were like, oh, you have really bad credit? Let me help you out, little girl. So they were willing to give me credit because their APR was like substantially higher than anybody else's. And heaven forbid you missed a payment, they were going to bend you over in a way you never expected. They were going to do what they could to destroy your credit, take as many fees as humanly possible, jack your interest rate up even higher after that. But for a lot of people, Capital One is the only option because they are willing to play in the dirt, I guess you will, where people with lower credit scores, lower incomes, really bad payment histories, delinquencies, repossessions, things like that. They're willing to go there because they know that if you need a credit card that bad, they basically got you by the cojones, by the balls with that one. So Capital One buying out Discover, taking away the ability for people to get, even though technically they're considered a lower ranked credit card than Capital One, it still is going to make a major difference in the fact that now you're down to 3 players when it really comes down to it. It says here, at the same time, the 2 lenders have had to, Capital One, okay, we talked about customers balance on the cards, American Express, Discover. At the same time, the 2 lenders have had to boost their reserves against the possibility of rising borrower defaults. After battling inflation for more than 2 years, many lower and middle income Americans have run through their savings and are increasingly running up their credit card balances and taking on personal loans. I mean, the average, I think they said, the average American barely has $500 in savings. Most Americans right now, low income or white collar, blue collar, are relying on their credit cards a lot more in the past couple of years during the whole pandemic because of lack of jobs, because of the higher interest rates, because of the higher insurance, the higher mortgages, the higher gas prices, absolutely everything. It says here that last year, Capital One's net income available to common shareholders slumped 35% versus 2002 as its provisions for loan losses soared 78% to $10.4 billion. Discover's full year profit sank 33.6% versus its 2022 results as its provisions for credit losses more than doubled to $6.02 billion. Now, for those of you who have Discover cards, I wonder, like, I don't know what interest rates are like. Discover is the one thing I do not have. I've had Visa, I've had MasterCard, I've had American Express. American Express is all I use. I've never had a Discover card, but I don't. From the people I know who had them, they liked the customer service. They had lower interest rates, I think, and they were pretty good at giving credit increases and things like that. Less hoops to jump through. So now with that changing, the people who previously would have had to Discover are going to end up with Capital One or try to get a Visa probably. But the fact that we've lost an entire credit card is kind of a big deal in my personal opinion. It's just like all these banks that are going out buying up little banks, PNC going through and buying up all these smaller banks in cities, like these one-off banks. They're buying them up and adding them. It's like, just going through and grabbing and adding to make that bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the next thing you know, you only have 3 banks to choose from because they bought up all the other little banks and those 3 banks control everything. Well, now you've got the credit card companies that are buying up the smaller versions of credit cards and now they control everything. It's going to come down to you're going to have one option for a bank, one option for a credit card. And if you can't get in with either one of them, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? So this may not be a big deal to a lot of people, but it should be something that you keep on your radar because the more these buyouts happen, the more it's going to affect you and I when it comes to time to get a mortgage for a house, a loan, or for a car, or any kind of personal thing you may need, or any kind of credit. It's gonna be very difficult in the future. I bet money. Because they've been pulling back on credit cards for the longest. They've been pulling back on auto loans. You've had to jump through extra hoops just to get a mortgage loan lately, especially if you want a 30-year fixed mortgage. All these things have been changing and they're doing it quietly. They're not really telling us too much about what's going on in the banking sector. I mean, when Silicon Valley Bank fell and the other one that I can't think of right now, I can't think of the other one right now. When those were going through issues, of course, that was front page because that was something that couldn't be hidden. These little buy-ups and these little things like this is something they're going to put down on like the 4th page of the newspaper, or, 15 stories down on Yahoo or New York Post or Washington Times or whatever else. But these are things that I think we really need to pay attention to because at the end of the day, it will affect our money, whether it's in your savings account, your checking account, how your credit works, or even your loans that you have out there. They can change those at any time. So little things like this need to be paid attention to. Thank you for letting me bring this to you. I saw it. It was interesting. I wanted to share it. Make sure you guys contemplate liking the video, subscribing to the channel. There is a link for Patreon in the description if you want to support the channel farther. If not, no harm, no foul. I love you either way, Squirrel Tribe, and I'll see you again later. Bye.